AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne's #1 news talk radio station. You're in tune with the Weekend in Wyoming program. Doug Randal with you on the phone. I believe I have DDA Director Amber Ash. Good morning, Amber.
Good morning, Doug. How are you this morning?
Good. How are you doing this morning?
Good.
First of all, I think, a lot of folks know what the DDA is and what it does, but give us a little background on the organization itself, if you would.
So the Downtown Development Authority is created through state statute and then a city ordinance. So it's kind of a quasi-government organization. Primary purpose is to drive development in downtown, and that can take on several different avenues, everything from working to attract businesses to assisting existing businesses.
Now, when we're talking about the area covered by the DDA, there are specific mapped guidelines for what area we're talking about. Is that right?
That's correct. So the DDA boundary runs from, on the west side, it would be Snyder, on the north, 22nd, on the east side, House, and then the railroad tracks on the south side, and then there's a strip along Central Avenue on the other side of the railroad track.
Now, the organization is funded, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, through dues from downtown businesses and also city funding. Do I have that right?
Yes. So we get we get a mill levy from the businesses that are downtown. Technically, it's the property owners, because sometimes they're rented. And then there's also a funding allocation from the city, which varies from year to year.
Now, that funding allocation, I believe, was cut last year. Do I have that right?
So for this year's budget, they do have some funding contingent upon receiving the CARES Act funding. So the grants that we provided the small businesses with to help them bridge the gap between the closures and when federal aid came in, those are reimbursable under the CARES Act if the city should get CARES Act funding.
So that remains to be determined at this point.
Yes.
Go ahead.
They've added a footnote in the budget to do that.
Now, you took over as director of the Downtown Development Authority not all that long ago. Is that right?
Correct. So it would have been February 10th.
Now, prior to that, you were a Cheyenne City Council member and a Laramie County Commissioner. Why did you decide you wanted to take on leadership of the DDA? What made you want to do that?
I was kind of at a point in my political career where I was ready for a change. And this position opened up, and I thought I could have a positive impact on downtown, and decided I'd go try my hand at that. So I was really fortunate in that, out of all the applications they received and interviews that they conducted, that I was offered the job. It was really awesome.
Now, the background research I did for this interview indicates you kind of have decided to take the organization in a little different direction. Tell us about that.
So I really want to focus on development in particular and trying to attract businesses and retain existing businesses. As part of that, we are working on some website enhancements. We're currently working on a business directory. So on our website, there'll be public listing of the businesses that are within the DDA district. Also, we've expanded and improved upon the events calendar, so we're trying to load up events that are downtown as they come available. Eventually, we want to add to the website a directory of current property that is available both for residential and commercial purposes, so that people have a one-stop shop there. In regards to our grants, we want to, particularly the Facade improvement grant, we want to really place an emphasis on if you are receiving a Facade grant, there has to be some sort of return on investment, whether that be property taxes, creation of jobs, increases in sales tax, whatever the case may be. We're still working through those details, and just getting kind of started on retooling and regearing that, but certainly want to focus more on that emphasis.
Now, my understanding is in the past, the DDA tended to focus more on improving the appearance of downtown Cheyenne. Am I right about that?
Well, there's the Downtown Development Authority, but the Downtown Development Authority is also a Main Street organization. So we will still be doing work around, appearance of downtown and stuff. But certainly we want to make sure that we are truly harnessing the abilities and what the DDAs were created for in terms of development. So the Main Street components won't go away. They'll still be there, and we'll still be working on those. But we also really want to bring focus and enhancement around development.
Now, Amber, as you know, and this isn't news to anyone who's been in Cheyenne for a while, a lot of downtown businesses seem to have a hard time being successful in making a go of it. Is that something you're trying to address?
Yes. So on July 1st at 8 a.m., we are offering a Marketing 345 workshop. We got a grant from Wyoming Main Street to do that, so it's 100% free to businesses in the DDA district. We are bringing somebody in specifically to work with them on marketing and getting their message out and creating kind of a storyboard, if you will. And then in the afternoon, there will also be an opportunity for some more one-on-one time work. So we're working towards that direction, as well as offering additional tools in the toolbox to existing businesses to help them market and promote their business. And we'll continue to have things like the CIG grants, the capital improvement grants, to help them make some improvements, smaller improvements to their facades, like awnings, as well as looking at things like benches, trash cans, those sorts of things, window decals. And then eventually on the website, we're hoping to actually provide a merchant portal where the businesses will be able to log in and view recordings of trainings that are available at their convenience, communicate with each other, planning capabilities, offer discounts to each other, that sort of thing. So
it sounds like you're working, for one thing, on improving your digital presence. Would that be accurate?
Yes, we are doing a ton of work around that. It takes time. It doesn't all happen overnight, but we are definitely really working hard to increase and improve the toolbox in that arena.
Okay, I'm speaking with Cheyenne Downtown Development Authority Director Amber Ash. By the way, if you have any questions or comments, we do have an open phone line at 632-3323. Amber, it seems like the coronavirus has changed everybody's world. Has it changed what you're trying to do, and has it made it more difficult, or has it not really had an impact?
Well, it certainly had an impact. Today's event, for example, normally when you do an event of this size and scale, you would do like one car show, and you might have like one area where bands are playing. For today, in an effort to really encourage people to social distance, there's 6 lots where the car shows are, and then there's 6 different locations where bands are playing, and then we've got 2 block parties going on. So we've really tried to stretch things across the district, certainly to try and get people to social distance. We've also worked with City County Health on things like just getting approval to have the event, and then the requirements for what we needed to do in order to be able to do that.
It does open up a whole new group of challenges, though, doesn't it?
Well, it does, because there's the challenge of people obviously have different feelings about things like masks and that sort of thing. That the CDA, we need to encourage people to social distance. We need to encourage people to wash their hands or use hand sanitizer frequently. If you don't feel good, please stay home. And if you cough or sneeze, please do so into, your elbow or your arm, not into your hand, so that you're not transmitting that. Certainly, want people, the challenge we run into is we want people to come out and have a good time. At the same time, we're acutely aware of the safety issues, and that if people aren't responsible, it can increase the spread of COVID, in which case then we have, a whole new set of challenges and potential for shutdown.
Are most of the downtown businesses back to operating normally, or what's the status on that?
It's kind of a mixture. A lot of them are back to normal operations. In fact, we just had a couple more businesses open up. Some of them, are still on limited hours or by appointment only, particularly if they have a family member who is high risk. That's a very difficult situation, because in that business scenario, you are interacting with a lot of different people, which increases the risk.
And again, you're in tune with the Weekend in Wyoming program on Cheyenne's #1 news talk radio station, AM 650 KGAB. On the phone with me, I have Cheyenne Downtown Development Authority Director Amber Ash. Amber, you mentioned that development is one of your priorities. Does that include trying to recruit new businesses or not?
Yes. So we're working that direction. In fact, we're working alongside leads in the city right now with some developers to try to bring some new development to downtown. But certainly those types of big projects take time. They don't happen overnight, and we're still doing all of the due diligence process with that. So we'll see what happens.
What's your criteria for development? What sort of things do you look at and think, this is a good fit for downtown Cheyenne?
Well, one of the other things we've been doing in the background is trying to build a database of all the businesses downtown. So we've been going in and identifying the businesses, trying to catalog them by type, making sure we have an accurate location, working to verify that, yes, they are still, in fact, there at that location. As part of that, right now we're at 545 businesses in downtown. And as we're categorizing the types of businesses, then that will give us better information to identify focal point areas where we feel like development could really offer additional opportunities downtown.
Amber, looks like we have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Did you have a question or comment for Amber Ash?
I'm sorry, good morning. Is this the call-in show with Nick Dodson, with Mr. Dodson, or do we miss that?
You missed that for this morning. He'll be back next week.
Then.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now, Amber, you mentioned 545 businesses in downtown Cheyenne. That's a lot of businesses. I quite frankly didn't know the numbers that high. What's the typical breakdown of these businesses? Are we mostly talking about restaurants, or what are they for the most part?
So it is truly a mix across the board of different types of businesses. We have lawyers' offices, accountants, restaurants, retail, gyms, personal care, tattoo parlors. There's, of course, government entities, nonprofits, but certainly you have, did I say accountants? I mean, there is a broad spectrum. There's an auto parts store, there's grocery stores, there's just a little bit of everything that you could imagine.
How much of a hit is downtown Cheyenne going to take for from not having Cheyenne Frontier Days this year? Do we know?
It will be substantial for a lot of our businesses. It's certainly very difficult, obviously, understand why Cheyenne Frontier Days, is a very, very large event. It brings a lot of tourism. They're a massive economic engine for Cheyenne. Very important partner for downtown. So yeah, it will definitely impact downtown.
Okay, I'm speaking with Cheyenne Downtown Development Authority Director Amber Ash, and we do have an open phone line if anybody has any questions or comments. I think a lot of folks are at the downtown events right now as we speak. Amber, the economy here in Cheyenne could take another hit with the July 1st potential cuts in state government. How concerned are you about that?
We're very concerned. It's been very difficult this year in terms of property taxes down, sales taxes down, funding from the state will be down, and this is at the same time that more than ever we need resources to be able to support and sustain our economy. So the addition of state budget cuts and what that might mean, it's scary.
Now, we still kind of think, and this is not certain, we still kind of think there will be another special legislative session at some point this year. That's somewhat in doubt, but the general consensus is it probably will happen. Would you favor any particular legislation, or would you be watching anything in a special session, like more appropriations or anything like that?
I think one thing that the Wyoming Business Council has really, through the allocations that the legislature provided, they have 3 different grant programs. So currently one is open for small businesses up to 50 employees. There's the opportunity right now to apply for funding, and there's still 2 more to go. So some of that, I think we need to see how that works out and what the impacts are specifically for businesses and long-term implications of that. Certainly, though, would hope that there would be additional resources as well for supporting agencies so that they could continue to assist in pockets and gaps as needed.
Okay. Now, Amber, something I'm going to ask you about, and I realize you may not have any direct input on it, but it is in downtown, so I'll ask about it. Have you heard anything more about the hole? What's going on over there, if anything?
So we are working very closely with leads on the hole. Again, that's a much larger development project. That's not something that there is an easy Band-Aid for. I know people think, well, we could just push a bunch of dirt and plant some grass, but that has some implications as well in terms of, needing to stabilize the side buildings on both sides, as well as the sidewalk. The building should extend partially under the sidewalk, so there's some stabilization that occurs there. So it's not really as simple as people think. Especially when you're working around historic structures, there's a lot that you have to be very cognizant of, because in the process you don't want to damage the adjoining historic structures. So we are working on that. Originally, before COVID, we were looking at asking the voters if they would consider a 7th penny sales tax to do a project in there. With COVID, the last thing that seemed appropriate. At the same time, we're trying to funnel revenue into those businesses has been to ask for a sales tax increase. That seemed like that would be very counterintuitive. So now we're trying to work the project from different angles. We're exploring, are there any funding opportunities out there where we might be able to get some funding assistance. The Hines and the Hole project combined are about a $30 million project. So it's certainly not as simple as one would think.
So do you see those two as being one project, or is there a possibility if somebody moving into the Hole that might not be moving into the Hines or have any affiliation with that, or how does that work?
Well, I think you could take them as 2 separate projects, but part of that has to be in order for the Hines to really be able to develop and meet ADA requirements and that sort of thing is, there has to be a reservation of space appropriate to allow for things like an elevator corridor, as well as some HVAC, so there'll have to be some sort of easement in there. We'd also want to work with the building owners where Wyoming Home is located, because they do have a sub-ground level access down there, and need to be cognizant of how that development might impact their access right there. So that's certainly, yes, there's a possibility, but there's a lot of pieces that have to be coordinated as part of that.
Okay, I'm speaking with Cheyenne Downtown Development Authority Director Amber Ash. We're down to about 2.5 minutes left. I did want to ask about parking. We hear a lot of people, frankly, kind of complaining about not enough parking in downtown Cheyenne. Is that really a problem, and is it something we can do anything about?
So there's different perspectives on that, just like everything else. Certainly, it depends on the type of business, on how much parking impacts them. We would really encourage people, though, to use the public parking facilities and, working to explore, are there any additional opportunities there to be able to improve upon parking in downtown. Ultimately, if you go to a big city or whatever, you do have to walk. There's not usually a whole lot of parking adjacent. It's kind of an issue in every downtown, every major downtown. So is there a magic solution to this problem? No. Is it something that we're aware of and working on? Absolutely.
Okay, Amber, I've asked you questions for about the last 25 minutes or so. Is there anything that you would like to talk about in regard to the DDA that we haven't covered as far as your goals, projects, or anything else?
Just to encourage people to come out today, support small business. You can, we have 50 merchants participating in the Shop Smart, Shop Safe. So each of those businesses have 10 water bottles. Inside them are some really cool prizes, up to $100 cash. There's gift cards. There's really cool light from the Deca Room. There's T-shirts and other kinds of merchandise from the Boot Barn, free donuts, free beer tokens in some of the bottles, free cupcakes. I mean, you name it. Cookies from Mary's Mountain Cookies. There is just all kinds of opportunities. There's also coupons for things like Just Dandy, 2 Doors Down. The bottles are a lot of fun. They're really cool. But while people are out, please remember to social distance, and please remember to take appropriate safety precautions today.
Okay, Amber, real quickly, is there a website or a phone number where people can get more information on the DDA?
So the website is just www.downtowncheyenne.com.